right, welcome high school football fans to Stark Media's High School Football Rewind. I'm Drew Sarachman, 15 years high school football coaching experience with the College Football Hall of Famer, Jim Ballard. What we're going to do here at this show is we're going to talk about the week in review in Stark County every week. We're going to piss some people off, probably a little bit. We're going to talk about what happened. We're going to dive into some X's and O's, some scheme of some things as the season goes along. And just to let everyone know, we are broadcasting from the luxurious Stark Media studio in downtown Massillon, right across the street from the new Obie.
Great job, by the way.
Yeah, from the new Obie statue there.
Across from Bender's.
From Bender's, yeah, so we can grab a little beer after the show if we need to. But let's get right into things, Jim. We're going to start Thursday. Last week, Perry took on Central. Perry won 51-28. They really dominated up front, all facets of the game. You know, Jack Talkington had a pretty good game for Central, you know, throwing the ball. But Central really struggled to get things going on offense. It seemed they were just relying on big plays. But like I said, Perry really dominated up front. Talk to me a little bit about, I know you worked with Jack Talkington and, you know, about him going forward and what we can expect from Central.
Jack's, this is his third year starting at Central. He lettered as a freshman. We broke the film down. He's been one of my quarterbacks that I've worked with at Ballard Quarterback Academy. The guy never comes off the field. The best way to describe him is he's just a football player. You know, he doesn't come off the field. He's the leader on offense as a quarterback, obviously. He had a great ball game. He ran for over 100 yards, threw for 175, accounted for a lot of their touchdowns. And he's also the quarterback on the defense. He's playing Mike linebacker, which is a lot taxing. As you said, Perry did a great job of controlling the line of scrimmage. They inserted a new quarterback who had a nice ball game. And Basham, they moved him around, was able to get another athlete on the field with some of the guys that graduated from last year, and they really put it on them. And it was close for a while. Central cut it to 28-21 in the third quarter, but they just couldn't get over the hump, and it was Perry's defense that ended up getting some stops. And at the end of the day, Canton Central Catholic just could not stop that run game that Perry had going as a payback win for last year.
Yeah, a great overtime matchup last year. One thing I was really impressed by Perry is, like we said up front, they really dominated Central, and Central's going to have to figure that out because I know they had some high hopes. They really struggled on the offensive and defensive line. But, you know, as a former coach, looking at Perry's sideline, nowadays you see all these schools with like 15 coaches on the sideline. No one's doing a damn thing. And I thought, like, it was the most organized sideline I've ever seen. Coach Slate's there. He's got like 3 or 4 guys that are communicating. They're all lined up on certain yard lines, watching certain things. They were really efficient. And, you know, it seemed like Perry, every time you look, a guy was coming out of the game. They had injuries piling up. Next man in. Staff was really efficient. Big win to start the year for Perry, 51-28. Another Thursday game we had, we won't touch on too much. Fairless picks up right where they left off, 31-0 over Sandy Valley. You know, we understand Sandy Valley's had some injuries to start the year. So, you know, we wish them the best of luck. But, you know, hats off to Coach Sarbaugh at Fairless, picking up right where they left off. PAC champions from last year. And hopefully they...
He only gave up 5 rushing yards, forced 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
Very efficient ball game, and right from the beginning, it was Fairless that was dominating, and Sandy Valley really couldn't get much of anything going.
Yep. Move on, start to get into the Federal League now. Canton McKinley went up to Mentor. I know Coach Antonio Hall was really disappointed with their effort. They had 12 penalties, 3 turnovers. You know, coming into this year after Antonio's first year, I really thought that McKinley was going to turn things around. You know, and they've got a lot of talent, great coaching staff. You know, and I think it was just an overall disappointing performance because you have a Mentor team that's down a little bit. You know, you're going on the road. You don't have that pressure of playing, you know, in front of your home stands, and they've really had a lot of mistakes. Quarterback Keaton Rohde, who everyone's been talking about all offseason, you know, has had great work done. He's been working real hard. Started 5-5 of the game, and then, you know, he finished 6-21 with an interception the rest of the way. So McKinley's really going to have to, fix some things moving forward if they want to be where everyone expects them to be this year in Antonio Hall's second year. One bright spot is they did run for 207 yards on the ground against Menor, which I think is much better than they did last year against them. Any thoughts on McKinley going forward the rest of the year?
They're a good football team. I think Menor is a little bit down, but at the end of the day, they got one of the biggest high schools in the state of Ohio. They got a ton of kids that can play both ways. They started a new quarterback this this game. Jacob Snow, I believe, was hurt, who started last year. And the Fox did a nice job. He finished 10 of 23, did throw an interception. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, for McKinley, you can't go on the road against a traditional playoff team like a Menor and have 12 penalties for 80 yards. You can't have one interception. You can't have 3 fumbles lost. You as an offensive coach and a former head coach know full well, if you win the turnover battle, you're usually going to go about 9-1. And you go on the road against a good team like Menor, you can't have those things happen. I think McKinley will pick it up. This is an experienced team. I think at the end of the day, at the end of the year, McKinley's going to be right there for the Federal League Championship playing. But this will be a wake-up call early, and I think they respond.
Yeah, for sure. We always talk about as coaches, the best improvement that you hopefully will have during the year is between week 1 and week 2. So I think there's a lot of teams that, as we continue to go on, are going to, fit that mold, that they're going to have to fix some things going into week 2 if they want to be successful for the rest of the season. Moving on, another Federal League matchup. Hoover beat Akron Buchtel 35-21. Nice week 1 win after a bad scrimmage showing against Alliance the week before. I was at that scrimmage. Alliance took it to them. It was 30-0 in one half. Hoover had a ton of penalties on offense. I know they've been trying to retool the offensive line, moving some guys around. Some big plays by some veterans there at Hoover gets them to win week 1. But I think this is a little bit of a rebuilding year for Hoover, and we'll see if they can build on from here. Buchtel, was down in that game, came back, but Hoover was able to close them out. One more game that we're going to talk about. Louisville at Steubenville. 21-0 Steubenville over Louisville. Tough place to start a season, going down to Big Red Stadium. From what I understand, as always, Louisville didn't get some calls to go their way. 21-0. I believe they had a touchdown call back. Some other tough plays, but I think this is a better Louisville team than what we saw last year. We're going to show them this week in our YouTube stream game of the week at home against Poland in their home opener. They've got a new quarterback in Cruz there, who's going to do well. He's got some Division II offers, as a defensive back, and I really think Louisville starts to put it in here for Troy Davis in his second year. Do you have any thoughts about Louisville?
I don't think you're going to win a lot of games with 100 yards of total offense.
No, they're going to have to get better.
They're running the Navy offense, kind of the option, and you're 2 for 7 with 1 interception for 20 yards. Fumbled 5 times. Two, they ended up losing 2. But to me, this is a base run team, and you're putting the ball on the ground 5 times.
Yeah, they're going to have to get better.
You rushed 31 times for 82 yards. So offensively, they really got to figure it out. I know they have a plan. This Steubenville team is good. Anytime you go down there, as you know, you've coached down there and played down there. It's an awful tough place to play. This week will be a good test for Louisville. I think we'll really have a better idea after they play Poland this Friday on where Louisville's going to go the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm looking for a good game. Davion Cruz at quarterback. It's his first start. I think he'll get things together. I think staff will identify, what we need to fix. Obviously, the turnovers. What we need to do to maybe get some more yards and make some more plays on offense. But pretty good defensive performance by them. Now we'll move to a kind of an old Louisville rival in Minerva. Unfortunately for Minerva, it kind of seems like new season, same old Minerva. They lost 44-7 to East Liverpool. Hopefully for the people down there, they can get it turned around. I know the kids work real hard, but it's not looking great for them. Another kind of big, tough opener was Dalton 42-13 over East Canton. Dalton, perennial powerhouse in the lower divisions, Division 6-7. Another small school score from last week, Struthers 49-6 over my alma mater, St. Thomas Aquinas. I'll be honest, I don't really know what St. Thomas is rolling out over there these days, the kids. I know they have a couple returns from last year's team, but they could be, the numbers are down. Sounds like they have about 25 kids. Had a couple kids transferred in that aren't playing now. So I think it could be a tough season for my Knights.
Yeah, when you don't have a lot of kids and you're battling just to stay healthy with 25 kids, it's hard to even line up to practice to get a good look. And when that happens, and it's just it doesn't bode well. And hopefully they can get this ship righted and figure it out as they go on. But it's looking like it's going to be a tough year for the Knights, especially if they start getting hit with injuries.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think they had to cancel some games last year. Hopefully that's not the case. But I wish luck to my alma mater. Hopefully they can get things going right. It was a nice first win to the season for Malvern, 31-14 over East Palestine. They really had a young squad. We had an opportunity to talk to Coach at the Kempthorne Classic, 7-on-7, where they were really putting against some tough competition. They really did great there, bringing in, like I said, a lot of new players. So that's a good win to start the season for Malvern, 31-14 over East Palestine.
Anytime you can get off the season with a win and set that tone for the rest of the season bodes well. I like Malvern down the stretch. Mm-hmm. Make the playoffs and have a decent run at it. Yep.
One more small school score. It was Tuslon, 2 overtimes over Canton Valley, 49-48. It sounds like it was an insane game. I don't think people talk about this enough. Donnie Hertler, after he left, Hoover, went down there, Florida, relaxing a little bit. Now he's back into it at Canton Valley, a place, let's face it, has not had any success in football recent years. Turn it around, making them competitive, making it exciting games. I mean, Canton Valley to play with a Tuslon team who has pretty good, history of football is just really great for those kids. We'll see if that propels them to further success as the year comes along. Another one, not really in Stark County, but, around the area, West Branch was in a great game with Canfield. Canfield won that 35-31 battle of 2 all-state caliber quarterbacks. And I know you're familiar with those guys, Jim, so I'll let you talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, Brock Lowry's the number 1 ranked quarterback in the state, 2023. He's going to Indiana, and then also Drew DeShields, who committed to Eastern Illinois. 2 of the best, probably top 5-6 quarterbacks in the state going head-to-head. It was back and forth. Lowry just outplayed him. He ended up going 10 for 16 for about $155 and a touchdown, but it was his ability to make plays with his legs and extend plays in the pass game. He ended up rushing for 215 yards and 5 touchdowns. He also plays strong safety on defense. He's another guy that's like Jack Talkington that doesn't come off the field, or Will Butler for Lake that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But it was a tremendous ball game. I broke film down with Brock. Going into the game, West Branch had graduated some guys. I really wasn't impressed with what I saw defensively. I thought the Canfield could make plays with Lowry's ability to do it with his arm and his legs. And him being a third-year starter, you've had quarterbacks that have played for you for multiple years. You just see the maturity and the process and the position of going from being a sophomore and getting a little bit of rope, and now he's one of those guys that has the ability to audible in every play, does a great job of managing the run game as well as the pass game. And if you haven't had a chance to see him play, you really need to check him out because he is a dynamic player and one hell of a kid.
Yeah, 2 really good teams from last year, and I think they're both probably going to be playoff contenders this year as well. Another EBC squad, not really in the area, but just right outside. It's Carrollton with 34-13 winner over Manchester. I really think Carrollton, they return a lot of places or a lot of pieces from last year's team. They're going to be a contender to win the EBC now, especially with Canton South moving out of the EBC, which was, into the pack, which was, probably would have been one of the favorites to win the EBC along with Alliance. Carrollton, I got an opportunity to go down there last year and watch Canton South at Carrollton. And what a beautiful stadium. I mean, it's a great place to watch a game. If you ever have a chance, go down and check out Carrollton down there. Back to the Federal League now. Glen Oak, 51-14 14 winners up at Shaker Heights. The Burt brothers, Avante and Adrian, combined for 295 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns combined. And, Nate Moore was talking to TJ Downing earlier about the game. He said this Glen Oak team looks different. They got a big matchup with Massillon coming up this week. And, it seems like Coach Garcia back in his second year. They made the weight room a priority. I think they have 4 or 5 offensive linemen back from last year. A lot of talent there with the 2 Burt brothers. A couple years ago, I had an opportunity to coach their older brother, Asian Burt, who's a phenomenal athlete. So let's see if Glen Oak can kind of bring it together and become a contender again. What do you think about this Glen Oak Massillon game coming up next week?
I think they're going to have their hands full, and we were talking about this off air, but last year in the first half, Glen Oak was right there with Massillon.
Yeah.
Massillon was still figuring out their footing with Slaughter and the quarterback who just graduated. But they're better. The bottom line is they're better. They're bigger and they're stronger in the weight room, as you talked about. That was a priority. Coach Garcia is the all-time winningest coach now in Glen Oak history, I believe, with that win. Mm-hmm. This was one of those games, Drew, where, I didn't look at it that close, but when I saw the score, I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
The Eagles were flapping them wings strong, man. They put up 36 points in the first half to get out quick on Shaker. As you said, the Burt brothers were dynamic. They had 4 touchdowns combined in the first half. They rushed for a lot of yards, and defensively they got it done. They gave up 1 touchdown in the first quarter, and then they gave up another one until the second quarter. I think it's going to be a good game for about a quarter and a half, but I think you're slowly but surely going to see Massillon impose their will on them up front. Mm-hmm. I think they're a little bit more experienced. I think they're a little bit bigger and stronger at this point. Plus, you got Hartshorn back, who's a dynamic running back, has multiple D1 offers. Slaughter coming into his second year. We're talking about a kid who was barely 14 years old starting last year in Massillon. Yeah. And if you paid attention to Massillon football, there's not too many freshmen that come out here and start, especially with the schedule that they play. So he's starting to settle in a little bit. I think his process as far as what he's seeing with coverages and schemes that they're trying to do, I think he's getting better at that. And when you have a quarterback that can move like him, you still have Freddie Lennox Jr. You got Arvell Banks, who's going to Toledo on the outside as a 6'4" receiver. The play action game and the RPO game with having Hartson next to you or behind you in the pistol, that makes for a tough matchup for any defense.
Yeah, just to touch one last thing on Glen Oak before we move on and talk about the Massillon Moeller game from last week. I think one thing of when you're building a program or you're trying to get back to where you once were, you have to beat the teams you're supposed to beat the way you're supposed to beat them. And that's exactly what Glen Oak did last week. They took care of business. They beat a team that they should have beaten by a lot of points.
They got on the bus.
Yeah.
They had to drive an hour. That was a business trip. And then you know how that is sometimes. Sometimes, we're talking about 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that, sunshine, and they get a little distracted on the bus. But, man, they went up there. Mm-hmm. They put that tie on. They got off the bus. They kicked their ass, and they got back on the bus and went home. It was impressive what they did to start this season. Yeah.
Now we'll move on to, like I said, Massillon and Moeller, probably the biggest game in the state to start the season. Week 1, a lot of history here, right over here around the corner at Paul Brown Tiger Stadium. Crowd of 12,000, and Moeller was just too much for the Tigers, beating them 49-31. Seemed like Moeller had the advantage up front the entire game. And the thing that surprised me, and we were talking about this earlier, was the speed of Moeller. They looked so much faster than Massillon. And, sometimes it's not just speed, it's where you're getting them the ball. It's, maybe Massillon was overthinking things on defense a little bit, which made them play slower. But, Moeller's just flipping the ball out in the flats to the running back, big chunk. Throwing a bubble, big chunk. And they just looked faster than Massillon the whole game. The other thing was, we talked about, Marcus Moore up front. He was getting double-teamed a lot. The rest of the Massillon defense is going to have to step up. They cannot give up 49 points. I know, Moeller is probably regarded as one of the best teams in the state of Ohio. But, the expectation for Massillon's higher than that. It's higher than giving up 49 points to a Cincinnati Moeller. I think they'll rebound. One thing you're talking about, Slaughter, is we have to remember, although he played a lot last year, he's still only a sophomore. And until about halfway through that sophomore year, that's when things really start to click. But like you said, I think Massillon's going to be too much for Glen Oak. I think they're going to come out, maybe a close first half and then pull away from them. But do you have any final thoughts on the Massillon Moeller game?
This is one of the best Moeller teams they've talked about that they've had in the last 25 years. Mm-hmm. And when you got a lot of experience, like they do, and yet your boy Jerry Faustin is in the house. Longtime Moeller coach, legendary Notre Dame coach, of course, Akron U. But they're a great team. Moeller's going to be a team that we're talking about in Division I at the end of the year that's going to be, I believe, in the Final Eight, the way that they're playing to start the season, everything that you read about them, the team speed that you said. They did a great job of just getting the ball into their athletes' hands in space to force Massillon to make tackles one-on-one, and they just weren't able to do that. Slaughter, as you said, he is a sophomore, but he's also a sophomore that didn't start every game last year or play every series. There was some rotation, like there is right now at Lake with Will Butler and Cale Jarvis. So realizing that you're the guy as a former quarterback, you're not looking over your shoulder, afraid to make mistakes. This is clearly his team now. He just has to do a good job of taking what the defense gives him, not try to do too much, realize that he has a lot of playmakers on the outside, and he's not a guy that they're going to depend on throwing 40, 45 times for them to win games. He just has to stay consistent, make good decisions with the ball, and let Hartson do what he does, and that's run from north and south.
Mm-hmm. All right, before we move on, we're going to talk about one of our sponsors, Ben Wallenberg Chocolates, at the corner of 25th and Harrison in the Fulton Drugs Plaza, right across the street from Stadium Park. Absolutely delicious candy and nuts. They use nothing but the best ingredients. I go in there all the time. Their peanut brittle's the best in town. They're open Tuesday through Saturday until 6 p.m. Get in there, get some stuff for tailgate before the game. When I call games last week, I had some roasted cashews on my side, a couple breaks. I'd let Jeff talk a little bit and eat some cashews, but absolutely delicious. Thank you to them for all their support. Ben Wallenberg Chocolates, go in store, visit them, get stuff for your tailgate, watching the games at home, all that. We'll move on to Canton South, down on the river, against St. Clairsville. The offense was there. We knew it would be. Poochie Snyder coming back. They need to get the defensive figured out because they went down 48-34 to St. Clairsville. St. Clairsville, historically a good program over the last 10 years. Brett McLean is their head coach. Not many people know this. Brett McLean was the defensive coordinator at St. Thomas Aquinas before he took the head coaching job down at St. Clairsville. I think they've been in a couple state championship games. So really a tough opener, which a lot of Stark County teams had. Canton South going down there, St. Clairsville. Like we said, we need to get the defense figured it out. Adversity strikes again. They're supposed to play Saturday, Canton South against Columbus Eastmore. Teacher strike down in Columbus. That game isn't happening. So Claymont's going to come up, who also had a cancellation. Play same time, same place, Saturday. So hopefully they can get back on track, get in the win column. But talk about Poochie Snyder, what he was able to do last year, and what you think he'll be able to do this year now in the Pac-7 coming from the EBC.
I think he's going to put up monster numbers. He did last year. Last year was his freshman season, I believe, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And the numbers he put up then, and being in the same offense with Coach Dennison, he's done a great job. He's had a tremendous coach everywhere he's gone. He's won. Mm-hmm. And now when you got a guy like Poochie Snyder who's seen about every coverage and been in every situation that you can as a freshman. That's not one of those programs where he was throwing 7 to 12 times during the game. We were talking about 25 times a game, and he was able to handle that as a freshman, just to build on that year to come into the same offense and have some of the same receivers coming back to be able to get that timing down. They're going to be really good, and we're going to keep talking about Poochie Snyder because he's a guy who, on an average day, is going to throw for 225, 230.
Yep. Yeah. Another Pac-7 member, Northwest, with an impressive win, Week 1 against Norton. Nice win for Coach DeMarco. There are some things going on there that are really, really tough. Braden Mick is not going to be with the team. at least until week 8. They haven't decided who is going to play quarterback, but they had a lot of returners from last year coming in, able to go beat a playoff team in Norton last year, who was a playoff team last year, 35-14. Yeah, can you shed any light on what's going on down there in Northwest?
Yeah, it's one of those things where in the off season, we found out that Braden was going to be ineligible, for whatever reason. I mean, he's had a lot thrown at him. Everybody knows it. I mean, he's a young father. My son's 11. I can't imagine being 17 years old and having a baby right now.
He's a great kid, too.
Great kid. Great family. Dad, known as dad for a long time. Tremendous athlete. So when he was ineligible, you were looking at Badger to play quarterback and Austin Wright. Austin was coming into his senior year as a Ballard Quarterback Academy guy that I've worked with for the last few years. They came out the first couple series, really didn't give him a chance to do anything. Ran the ball every play, and then they went to Badger in the third series and started throwing the ball a little bit. He had some success, so they rode with him. But it is, at the end of the day, a great win for Northwest. I worked with Toby Taka, who's the starting quarterback from Norton, who had a good year last year. Changed up the offense this year. Pollock ended up retiring from over there, so they got a new head coach that came in. So, might have caught him at the right time, first week until they start figuring things out with a new system, a new head coach. But at the end of the day, Coach DeMarco getting it done with a great win against a very good Norton team. And that was one of those games that you look at, you kind of thought that with the way things were going in the offseason for Northwest, that Norton was going to come out and dominate, but it was the defense that really got it done for the Indians.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought that was a surprise for me, week 1, the way they were able to handle Norton. Next week, Northwest is going to take on Marlington at home, who really struggled against Coventry. Coventry's always got a lot of good athletes. They lost 34-28. So like we said, they're going to go down to Canal Fulton this week, try to get in the win column. But it looks as though Coach DeMarco's got Northwest in a good place. They figure, all the moving parts on offense, lean on that defense a little bit. That's going to be a tough game for Marlington as well. Back to the Federal League now. Green with a 55-8 win over Akron Ellet. Green Bulldogs picking up right where they left off last year on offense, putting up big numbers. Akron Ellet team who hired their coach late in the summer. So, really no surprise for Green there, but, good for them to have some consistency. You have a great season, and the thing that's really program building is to come back the very next season and continue that success. So that's great for Coach Geis and the Bulldogs up there at Green. 55-8 win over Ellet. Do you have anything on Green?
I after that senior class that was so heavy, and Trevor Van Horn, Trey Martin going down to Ashland to play. I worked with and still do Samino Manson, who was one of the wide receivers there last year that was penciled in a quarterback. They ended up going with another kid who I believe transferred in from Hoban, who had a monster game. I believe 17 for 22 for 4 or 5 touchdowns, and they just reloaded.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about one of the most efficient and prolific combinations in Van Horn to Trey Martin. Now you got Martin 2.0 and the younger brother Caleb, and he had a monster year as a freshman last year. He had over 80 catches when his big brother got hurt. So you still have him. You still have Samino Manson. They've still got weapons on offense at the wide receiver position. But I think it's going to come down to this Green team being able to stay healthy up front.
Yeah. And what a tough job it is for Coach Geis up at Green. You're trying to keep your kids. You've got Hoban and St. V right in your backyard, where a lot of kids over the years, talented kids, have been going to St. V, going to Hoban.
Starting quarterback from St. V is Lentz, who's a Green kid.
Yeah.
The problem is his dad and his uncle both started at St. V, but as you're saying, Green is losing kids to Hoban and to St. V.
Yeah. So really impressive what they were able to do there. Move on to another Federal League game here. It was Lake 41, Alliance 14, a game that you and TJ covered on 99.7 FM, where you guys will have a game every single week. This was kind of a game that we were talking about all week long. We have high expectations for Lake. We knew Alliance had talent coming back at the skill positions, quarterback, running back. Had some good defensive backs. And we really thought this was going to be a good game. And Lake really pulled away from them. Alliance flexed their muscles in a scrimmage, like we talked about earlier, 30 points to 0 in one half over defending Federal League champ Hoover, and then comes in week 1, at home, at Mountain Union, big crowd. Lake comes in, and Lake takes care of business.
It was one of those games too, Drew, where you look at the score and you're like, oh, Lake just went over there and hammered them, and that wasn't the case at all. Lake won the toss. They decided to defer. Alliance got the ball to start. Brendan Zerbrug, wow. Mm-hmm. I mean,
and he wasn't real sharp in the scrimmage against Hoover.
He was razor sharp last Friday night. His ability to process, his feel in the pocket, when he decided to run, I mean, he had another gear that looked like a running back. Mm-hmm. When he decided to get north and south, he made every throw. He got himself in trouble. He did throw an interception. He was just late down the middle on a seam, but he finished 20 for 23. He had 95 yards rushing. They started out. They got the ball to start the game. They went down methodically down the field and scored. They go up 7-0. Lake gets the ball back. They really don't do much. Goes back and forth a little bit. Lake gets a stop, and Lake ends up splitting time with quarterbacks with Will Butler and Cale Jarvis, which I hate as a quarterback. It's so hard to get into a rhythm. But Coach DeGeorge made the decision that he was going to play, each quarterback every other series. The other part of that equation is Will Butler starts at Sam linebacker on the defensive side of the ball, which he absolutely shined in his first game. He had 2 sacks. He had a strip sack, which was huge. But when Alliance went up 7-0, Lake put Will Butler in his first series. He had a key throw on 3rd down on a comeback to keep the drive going. And then on 4th and 3, Lake ended up having a penalty, so backed him up to 4th and 8. Butler drops back. He rolls to his left. He turns his shoulders, falling to the sideline, and throws a 25-yard dart by the backside X coming across the back of the end zone to level it at 7-7. If Alliance gets a stop there, I really believe they go down the field and score because they were moving the ball at will early on Lake. However, that didn't happen. It was 7-7, went back and forth. Lake ended up getting another touchdown before half, which really sucked some of the life out of the Aviators. Lake got the ball to start the second half. Jarvis led them on a drive that went down the field, and then Lake opened the game up a little bit. And you could just see as the game was going on, Alliance getting a little bit deflated. They're not as deep as what Lake was. They don't have the numbers up front, and I really think they got worn down in the second half. Solberger looked outstanding at the running back position.
Big, tough kid, yeah.
Ty Miller, the best wide receiver for Lake, was not able to play in this game, and you had other guys that just stepped up and got it done. Jarvis finished 7-10 for $184 with 2 touchdowns. Will Butler, who was our player of the game, finished 4 of 6 for 55 yards with 2 touchdowns. Also had another 55 yards on the ground with 8 carries. And again, the defensive play that he made, he had a sack, and he stripped Zerbrug to force a turnover, which led to 7 more Lake points. Just a tremendous team win for this Lake team.
Yeah, I think Lake is my pick to win the Federal League this year. I think they're really strong all around. They got to stay healthy. And at first when I heard that they were going to play both quarterbacks, I was thinking well, what the hell are they doing? Why would they do that? But, as you said, Will Butler is so good on defense. And I know he played both ways last year at Mogador, but this is different. When you're playing both ways in the Federal League, it's a lot tougher on your body. It's going to be tougher to play both ways and stay healthy, and playing a Division II, Division I schedule than it is going to be out of Mogador. So I think maybe this will work. It's probably not great, like you said, for either quarterback to get into a groove, but at least right now, until one quarterback, maybe has a bad game, that this is what they're going to keep doing.
We'll find out real quick when they line up against Maple Heights on Friday night at home.
Yeah,
that's going to be a true test. We saw them over the summer at the Kemp Thorne 7-on-7.
Yeah, Classic. They won the Kemp Thorne 7-on-7 Classic. Yeah, Coach Shaq Washington, former Cincinnati standout, All-American wide receiver, is now back at his alma mater, state champion when he was the quarterback at Maple Heights. Sam Berkwin and Jeff Shreve will have that game on Rock 106.9 live, Stark Media production as well. So, yeah, I think Lake is in a great position right now. If they could come out and do what they did against the Lions to Maple Heights, I think they're in. It's going to be a great season for them. So, another Federal League game is the game that Jeff Tyler and I were on last week on the YouTube stream. And you can check that out every week. We stream on the YouTube a game of the week. We've got 99.7 FM and we've got 106.9 FM. 3 games covered by Stark Media every week. So we had Jackson and Akron East. Jay Rohr's first game as a head coach. Stark County Hall of Famer. Probably one of the best players ever to come out of Jackson. Really, in the first half, it was kind of a boring game. It was 7-0. Jackson was just feeling them out on offense. East made a few mistakes. Jackson's defense looked good. It was 7-0 at halftime. All of a sudden in the second half, it was like the light bulb went on the East sideline. And their coaches realized, hey, we got a lot of athletes. We're playing Jackson, who doesn't have the speed that we do. So let's just get the ball out of our quarterback, who's very good, Justin Cox, who you work with. Get the ball out of his hand quick and let our athletes go to work. And all of a sudden it started happening. 60-yard touchdown, 80-yard touchdown. Jackson, hats off to them. And, offensive coordinator Bo Balderson, former, head coach there, former head coach at, Glen Oak, kept the pressure on East. They were scoring more in the second half. Ethan Lesko for Jackson kind of settled in.
Efficient, 8 for 17.
Yep.
Did enough for him to overcome, some of the obstacles that they had. They graduated a lot of guys off that team from last year.
Yeah.
Graduated Kistler, you graduated Hunter Geisinger for starters, and they had some holes to fill. But Lesko was efficient. Jason Davide and a string of really good running backs. Brandon Craig graduated off that. Davide just picked right up where he left off. He's a strong kid, really good kid. Jackson was able to get it done. But what a game for Justin Cox. I broke that film down with Justin and had a chance to see him play from start to finish, 17 to 27, 415, 4 touchdowns. Wayne State commit, great kid, played extremely well. And like you said, speed is... There's no lack of speed on that East team.
No.
Tristan Thomas was 5'7", but he had 8 catches for 222. He was so fast and so quick on those slant routes that as soon as he caught it, he got in between the corner and the safety, and he was gone. Tremendous win for Coach Rohr at home, first of many. I'm sure you got to take your hat off to him, and they're playing without their best player right now. Benny Holzappa, one of the best linebackers in Stark County, is coming back from an ACL injury. Heard some rumors that he's going to be able to fast track that a little bit. Not sure exactly when he's going to come back, but I know his rehab is going way ahead of schedule. So I think we're going to see Benny Holzappa come back, and that will be the anchor on that defense that they need right now because they're so young and inexperienced at the linebacker position.
Yeah, East got the ball back with, I believe, 50 seconds to go in the game, down 6 points. They had just scored 13 unanswered, I believe, because they tried to go for 2 and didn't go for it. And had there been a minute 50 left in that game, I think East wins that game. I mean, Jackson was lucky to escape with a win. The defense really fell apart in the second half, something they're going to have to fix because they're going to play some teams that can throw the football. They're going to play some teams with some athletes. Glen Oaks got good athletes. McKinley's got good athletes. Lake has got experienced skill positions. Teams aren't just going to line up and try to play in the phone booth with Jackson, what they like to do. And they're going to have to figure some things out on defense in the secondary. They gave up 4 touchdowns in the air and at least 300 yards passing in one half.
Yeah, they certainly did. And one thing that should be said, too, after the scrimmage when Jackson got embarrassed by Walsh, Jay Rohr and his staff, to his credit, said, listen, what we're doing right now isn't working. They were running a 3-3, and they decided... bold strategy, Cotton, to switch from a 3-3 to a 4-2 the week before the first game. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be some breakdowns, some coverage errors. But one thing I can tell you, Drew, from watching them, his guys were flying around on defense.
They were, and they were physical.
And they were physical, and they were hitting. They might have got beat. They might have made mistakes, but they were making mistakes 100%. They were making mistakes full speed, and those are mistakes that you can live with, because when you try to implement a defense, a brand new defense, essentially the week of game one with inexperienced guys, with a team like East coming in with a 3-year starter and Justin Cox D1 commit, that's a lot to ask. Find a way to win in week one,
that's all it's about.
Especially at home. Yep. And Jay Rohr and his staff were able to do that. They scored enough points on offense, and in the end, the defense had to do what they had to do, and they were able to get off the field with a W. Yeah,
and speed from experience, it's a lot more fun to fix mistakes when you're 1-0 than it is when you're 0-1.
Here's a lot of things done.
Yeah. So, that kind of puts a bow on week one. Going forward, the rest of the season as the show goes along, it's going to be a little bit different than what we did this week. We'll try to focus on some games. So, anyone you want to talk about a game that happened, want us to break it down, we're going to have some film to be able to break it down here, show you exactly what happened scheme-wise as the season goes along. Reach out to us, starkmediateam@gmail.com. Say, hey.
Send us your thoughts.
Yeah, send us your thoughts, Drew, Jim. I want to, this drive, Glen Oak really changed the game. Can you break that down for us? Those types of things. Before we end the show, just going forward, want to talk about kind of the rest of the season going forward. Your biggest surprise week one. What do you think that was? Yeah.
Big surprise, Glen Oak hammering Shaker Heights on the road.
Yep.
Putting a 50 burger on them. Mm-hmm. Didn't really see that one coming. Congratulations, Coach Garcia. It's a great way to start the season. It's going to be a fun one. I'm excited about doing the game this Friday, as Drew said, 99-7 with TJ Downing and the pony, Mark Milano. Be over at TJ's alma mater, Screaming Eagles, green and gold. That was a big surprise to me. Another surprise was Northwest handling Norton the way they did. Norton was 10-0 in the regular season last year. I believe they went to the second or third round of the playoffs. With the uncertainty at the quarterback position, with Braden Mick not being able to play, them rotating two quarterbacks, they didn't look real good in the scrimmage against Revere. For them to go out and get a win in the way that they did, I think they've got some things to build on. They'll probably figure out a little bit more what their identity is going to be. It looks to me like after you have a win like that you go with the sophomore and build on what he did. He had some plays that he made with his arm and his legs. Their defense played well, but those two things to me stuck out probably the most. The big win by Glen Oak and the big win by Northwest.
Yeah, and you spoke on my biggest surprise of week one was definitely Northwest as well. A lot of tumultuous things happened, some adversity that they have to deal with. The way they were able to come out and take care of Norton, a playoff team, a team that I believe beat them the year before, was really good for Northwest to get the season started. Another thing, what was your biggest disappointment in week one?
Biggest disappointment? That we didn't get to do more games.
I know, right? Yeah, it was fun. We had a blast out there.
One's just not enough. But I don't know if there was anything that was disappointing. There were some things that were surprising. I wouldn't say anything's disappointing after week one. Mm-hmm. I liked what I saw, the effort from most of the teams. Green was another big surprise for me. I knew that Ella was kind of down, but for them again to throw up 50 after graduating Van Horn, after graduating Martin, and all those kids, over 20 seniors, that was really impressive to me. Federal League's making a statement early.
Yeah, I think the Federal League looks strong. My biggest disappointment, like you said, I think a lot of things. Week one is such a crazy thing to analyze because a lot of things can change. But my biggest disappointment was McKinley, not because they lost to Menor, who's historically a good team. It's the way they lost. They could have won that football game. They are good enough to go up and beat a Menor team. 12 penalties, turnovers, missing open guys in the passing game, not taking advantage of the opportunities presented themselves. McKinley has to be able to do those things because I don't care how talented you are, you can't continually to overcome self-inflicted wounds as a football team. You have to do the right things all the time, and your talent will carry you the rest of the way. But McKinley's really got to clean those up. They go play a tough Austintown Fitch team
last year was
this year.
Coach Parker at Austintown Fitch does a great job. that game that they did last year was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The quarterback ended up graduating. He's down at Virginia. He's walking on down there. But they're fast. And what Fitch is going to do is they're going to come up, they're going to play man-to-man, and they're going to try to bring pressure. So Keaton Rohde's really got to come into his own. Again, one of those guys that split time last year with Amarian Williams. This is his team, though, and he's got to get better. 6 for 21 isn't going to get it done. I know there were some drops and everything else, but you can't go 6 for 21, not in Coach Bartlewell's offense.
Yeah.
You got too many RPOs and too many layups that you can hit with spot routes and bubbles and stuff like that. This is how McKinley started last year, though. And then by the end of the year, they really seem to figure things out. McKinley's going to be just fine, I believe. I think if you had a little bit of overconfidence coming into week 1 based on what they did last year, I think that got deflated real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Coach Antonio Hall will have them going this week. I think they rebound.
Yeah, I know he's only in his second year, but I think Antonio Hall is one of the best coaches in the county. He's got a great coaching staff with a lot of experience. Coach Henderson's on that staff. Butcher Bartlewell's on that staff. Brought in Chad Anderson.
Coach Tom McDaniel helps out in the consulting.
Yeah,
with Antonio.
that never hurts.
I mean, to have him as your mentor.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about week 2 partner. Excited about what we're going to do on the show this year. Again, anybody out there, we're coachable, man. We're interested in what you guys have to say, and if there's certain things you want us to talk about or things you're interested in, this is our show. We can do it any way we want. We want you guys to be involved in what we're doing and have some say. So feel free to reach out to us. We appreciate your support, and we appreciate you watching it.
Yeah, the reason we want to do this, we just want to talk about high school football. Talk about what happened the week before. This is not some high-end production that, we're just sitting here having conversation BSing.
We're two dudes just go talking ball, and the great thing is for you guys that are watching is I work with a lot of these guys personally, a lot of these quarterbacks I can give you insight on, like a Will Butler, like a Trevor Van Horn. I've been running Ballard Quarterback Academy now since 2007. I'm in my 15th year. I've had guys start in the Big Ten. I've had guys start in the SEC. I've had guys start national championships at every level. Youngstown State, Hunter Wells out of Fairless. Neil Seaman out of Louisville won a couple national championships at Mount Union. Love to have the opportunity to work with your sons. If there are any quarterback parents out there, look me up, Jim Ballard, BallardQuarterbackAcademy.com. Again, keep listening in, keep tuning in. We'll keep educating you, and we'll keep bringing you a great show.
Yep, and this week, just so everyone knows, on 99.7 FM, Jim and TJ Downing are going to have Massillon at Glen Oak. On Rock 106.9, Sam Berkwin and Jeff Shreve are going to be in Uniontown or Hartville, Uniontown, wherever the stadium is, for Lake and Maple Heights. And Jeff Tyler and myself will be over at Louisville at Leopard Stadium for Louisville taking on Poland. Good luck to everybody. Reach out, share us, follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Stark Media Team. We're going to be around. Love to get interaction back from people. That was part of the thing when TJ and JP started this is, we're not just going to bring you a game. We're going to be, a full-service platform, multimedia platform to interact with fans. So thank you so much for joining us week 1, and you can catch us next week on High School Football Rewind on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m.